What's up everybody, DLDS here. I'm actually reshooting this intro after finishing the tier list. Had some stuff going on in my personal life and it's obviously a super long video as you've probably seen already. So it took me like 5 days to get this edited and finished, and that's why I have this up behind me instead of a blank tier list. I wanted to give a quick shout out to Raven Pyros Gaming as an awesome website with awesome resources. There's all these options for preset tier lists, or you can make your own. You can see it's what I use to make my tier list, and a bunch of the other CCs are using it too. And yeah, great website with a lot of great tools, so check it out. Next thing I wanted to go over is the Godforge quests minigame. It's too late to sign up and still get the 20 out of 20 days for a legendary hero, but you should still log in, get your quests going, and build up that Aether if you haven't started already, because you can still lock in a legendary weapon and imprint, and if you're into it, you can get a sweet portrait that's only going to be available in the minigame. They got 3 options to choose from, and if you are jumping in now, I recommend you build up enough Aether and save it for an imprint first. The hero pool is much larger than the weapon pool, and it switches every day, so these 3 might not be there tomorrow. So make sure you lock in an imprint first. If you see one you like, it'll be less of a chance that that imprint comes back around again, whereas the weapons, they come up pretty frequently, so it won't be hard to lock in a weapon you like after you lock in an imprint. So yeah, make sure to head over to godforge.gg and sign up if you haven't started already. And the last thing I want to say before getting into it is, obviously it's a super long video like I already went over. I will have chapters for all the heroes that I go over, and I'm going to put this in, I don't know if I'm going to call it a tier list playlist, or maybe I'll call it Godforge Quests tier list, but I'm going to make a playlist for this, and that way there, every time I update a hero card, I can just add it to the tier playlist, and it'll be easy to find the most up-to-date info on a hero that you're looking for. That way there, if you want to look for a specific hero, you can click in the playlist, and if you don't see a video titled Updated So-and-so Hero, you can just come back to this video, and you know this one's the most up-to-date because there isn't a new video out. And yeah, were my 3 things. Now back to the video. Moving on to the tier list, you can see we have pretty standard tier lists. SA, B, C, D. Honestly, I'm a pretty easy grader for these hero kits, so I might not even use D tier. And C tier will kind of be like my niche tier. So it doesn't mean the hero's necessarily bad or anything. It's just that they're really dialed into one niche. And for someone you want to start a game with, I don't think you want to dial in on one niche. I think you want somebody that's kind of a Swiss Army knife that can do a little bit of everything to help give you the strongest start. I don't know if it'll reflect in my grading, but I will say the one exception to this rule is probably Clan Boss. Not that we have information on Clan Boss, but we know generally some of the best rewards in games come from the Clan Bosses. So if you were to dial into that niche, probably not a bad choice. And like I said, we don't really have a lot of information on the Clan Boss, but typical things that you want are sustain to stay alive and get a higher score. The longer you're alive, the more damage you're going to do. And also dots are usually real good against clan bosses. Since it is such a long fight, the damage over time just keeps ticking, and it really adds up over the course of a long, prolonged fight. Well yeah, I rambled enough. Let's get into the first hero. I do have the hero cards provided to us from Fateless, and I guess one more big exclaimer to get out of the way before we get into it is all these kits are still subject to change. From what we've heard, early access is still on target for the February-March launch, but at time of recording, we're still not even at early access, so there's still a lot of changes that could be made. And something else I just thought of, the team did tell us that they still need to do a pass-through on the multipliers, so I won't really be diving deep into the heroes' multipliers for their abilities, kind of just going with the general feel for the hero and what his kit brings to the table, not so much how much damage they might do, or in some cases shields multipliers. So yeah, now let's really get into it. As you can see, we got Anu up first. Wisdom Defender, aligned with Order, and he's in the Eker faction. For his basic, he attacks one enemy. He's a defender, so his damage is based on defense and a smaller percent attack. And places Vanish on the ally with the lowest current HP for 1 turn. Nice little skill to help protect whoever's hurting the most on your team or weakest. And his core is on a 5-turn cooldown, books down to 4. Place defense up 2 on all allies for 2 turns, and protect 2 on all allies except for this hero for 2 turns. Protect is just your general ally protect in other games in the genre. So that's a strong defensive ability. Get your defender taking the damage off your allies, and defense up 2 to help protect them. For his ultimate, one thing we're missing on these hero cards is the divinity generator. So we don't know what will help him gain divinity on top of his initiative. So like for example, in Alpha, some heroes gain divinity upon killing enemies. Some got divinity based on joining ally attacks and placing buffs, that sort of thing. So we're not sure what these heroes will have, so it's tough to tell how expensive their ultimates are. But basically, he will start with 0 divinity, and his ultimate cost is 1,000 divinity, which is on the lower end as far as total cost. Like I said, we don't know the divinity generators, so we don't know how easy it is to obtain versus other heroes. But he will place Phoenix on all allies for 2 turns. Then all allies except this hero will attack 1 target enemy. If an ally is under Protect 2, they will heal for 30% of the damage inflicted. So it's real nice. Phoenix is a revive on death. If I'm not mistaken, when it was first released, the heroes were revived with 100% turn meter. But as of the update from today, the day of recording, allies are revived with 50% HP and 50% turn meter. Could be remembering the 100% wrong, but I know at least now it's 50%. And we also know joint attacks are real strong, so placing revive on death on the team and a joint attack is great, and a little bonus healing never hurts. And for his passive, for every 10% divinity on this hero, reduce the damage allies receives by 3%. It's a real nice damage reduction. I think it really plays into the depth that ultimates bring to Godforge. This is one of those things where it's like, okay, I have 100% divinity, 30% damage reduction. Do I want to use my ultimate, or do I want to keep the 30% damage reduction? And at the same time, the passive really works well with the ultimate, because you're losing all this damage reduction, but you're gaining Phoenix and potentially some healing if the allies are under Protect 2. So even though you're losing the damage reduction, you're gaining another way to keep your allies alive. So I think there's a real good balance between the ultimate and the passive with the Anu. And I think I skipped it, but he has a 30% defense in arena battles leader bonus, which brings me to another point. During the alpha, all heroes had all battle auras because it was only the caverns in the alpha. So it would be feels bad to have heroes with the arena battle leader bonuses when you can't make use of it in the caverns. So if you see a hero you liked in the alpha with an arena or dungeons, basically anything but all battles, they didn't necessarily get a nerf. They may have always been intended to have that aura. They just gave everyone all battles in the alpha so they could all be utilized. I know I said I was going to go pretty easy on grading, but I think I'm going to bring Anu down to B tier. He's a real solid defender. He'll help keep your team alive. I just think there's better defender options, and with Phoenix only giving allies 50% turn meter when they revive, you're still kind of in dangerous territory. And if he still has low divinity, you're not getting a lot of damage reduction, so I can see you getting into tight spots even with Anu defending the team. But still really solid. Like, B's not a bad grade. He's still good. Next up we got Anubis, or Anukus, if you built him as a nuker or an alpha. My alpha nostalgia might affect my grade a little bit on Anubis, but let's get into his kit. He's a cunning brawler, lined with chaos from the Aru faction, with a 24% HP in all battles leader bonus. His basic attacks one enemy based on his max HP and a little bit attack. That's another cool thing Fateless did. I didn't touch on it with Anu, but they really don't want you to have wasted stats. So even if a hero's main form of damage comes from defense or HP, you're still going to get a little kick of damage from the attack. So if you have an attack substat on your piece, it's not just a wasted substat, it still goes into the attack and helps build your damage for heroes, which I'm a huge fan of. It doesn't necessarily make hero building easier because you're still going to be trying to get those perfect sub rolls and everything, but helps prevent those feel bad moments when you have a HP or defense nuker and you get an attack substat and you're like, I really don't want to use this piece because I'm not getting anything from this substat. But now you still get a little bit of a kick. But yeah, attacks one enemy 2 times. If the enemy is defeated, has a 75 scrolls to 100% chance to place Despair for 1 turn on all allies. And Despair blocks buffs and positive effects. And if it's still up when the hero it's placed on gets their turn, they miss their turn. So it comes at a high price, needing to get a kill, but it's a really strong disable. His core's on a 4-turn cooldown, scrolls down to 3. Attacks all enemy with a 75% scrolls to 100% chance to place Corrupt in initiative down for 2 turns. Initiative down, real self-explanatory, takes down the enemy's initiative. And Corrupt was actually a steal buff debuff, so if any buffs are attempted to be placed on the hero with Corrupt, Anubis will steal those buffs. For his ultimate, he starts with 250 base divinity, and the cost is 1600 divinity. And he attacks all allies. If his HP is below 50%, he heals himself by 30% of the damage inflicted, and if his HP is above 50%, places Barrier for 30% of the damage inflicted, Barrier being a form of shield that can stack. And for his passive, when a hero is defeated, increase this hero's turn meter by 30%. Nothing too crazy, but really plays well with his basic, where enemies defeated, you're placing Despair on other enemies, and you're getting a turn meter boost to get back to your turn quicker. And depending on where you're at in the battle, maybe laying down some more AoE nukes or going back in with your basic to hopefully kill, place Despair again, and keep the rotation going. So for Anubis, he might be high B tier, but I think he's going to end up being low A tier. A little bit torn on where to place him, but it was just so much fun playing with him in Alpha, and he was such a solid nuker. I'm gonna leave him in A for now. Like I said, he'll probably be in the bottom of A tier, but personally, I really love him as a hero, and see where he ends up. Right, next up we got Apollo. He's a Wisdom Invoker, aligned with Order from the Olympus faction, and I don't know if it's something that might change, but as of right now, he doesn't have a leader bonus for his basic. Attacks 1 enemy 2 times. First hit places Mend on all allies for 1 turn. Second hit has a 50, scrolls to 75% chance to place Acid on the target for 2 turns. And if Artemis is on the team, she will join in the attack. Real cool, already seeing hero combos come into play right off a launch. And Mend and Acid are real strong. With Acid, you can disable armor sets, and it deals 5% max HP damage. And also double the damage to shield and barriers. So if you're going against someone that's shielded, get a nice little bonus damage. And if I remember right, Mend used to only remove 1 stack of bleed, and it got bumped up to removing 2 stacks of bleed. And heals 10% HP, which is a nice little heal, being on the basic and applying to all allies. And we'll get to Artemis, but she's bringing a chance to inflict defense down when she's joining the attack. His core is a 5-turn cooldown, scrolls down to 3. Attacks 1 enemy, then places attack up 2 on all allies for 2 turns. Also equalizes the divinity of the ally with the lowest divinity to this hero's divinity. If Artemis is on the team, also equalizes her divinity. A couple things with this ability. His divinity cost for his ultimate is 1000, and it says it equalizes the divinity of the ally with the lowest divinity to this hero's divinity. So I think at most you're going to get the 1000 from his divinity cost, because it doesn't say his percent. So like we just saw Anubis with 1600, I think it was, cost. So if Apollo is at full divinity, I don't think you're gonna get full divinity if their cost is higher. Still, nice huge boost. If you just use your ultimate and you're at 0 and you get boosted to 1000, great. But the way it reads, I don't think if he's full, you'll automatically fill another hero's divinity. But it is another case where strategy comes in with your ultimates. So it's one of those, ooh, I got 1 turn left on this cooldown. Do I want to use my ultimate, or do I want to save it to boost somebody's divinity? And also, you're going to hope Artemis isn't the lowest, because I'm assuming if she's the lowest, she's going to get the divinity boost and nobody else will. Whereas if someone else is lower than her, they'll get the boost and Artemis will. Not sure if that's exactly how it'll work, but just reading it without testing, that's how I'm assuming it'll work. For his ultimate, his base is 0 divinity, and like we said, cost is 1000. Attack all enemies, reduce the cooldown of each ally core ability by 1 turn. For each ally under Mend, increase their divinity by 15%. For each enemy under acid, decrease their divinity by 15%. I think this ultimate's pretty huge because it's pretty low cost. Again, we don't know the generator, how easy it will be to get, but reducing core abilities even by 1 turn is huge. Just using Apollo and as an example, his is 3 turn cooldown. So you're basically getting your core on a 2-turn cooldown with that ultimate. And also the Mend on his basic is on all allies. So as long as you get the ultimate off while it's up on all allies, you're going to increase their divinity. And his passive, whenever an ally uses a core ability, increases the damage of their core ability by 10%. Stacks reset on each wave. So it won't be huge for wave content where you're hopefully tearing through the waves quickly. But this is kind of one of those situations where clan boss or any boss, if it's a long sustained fight and you're getting cooldowns on their core ability from his ultimate, you could boost the damage from allies' core abilities pretty high and just do some massive damage in these boss fights. I have a theory about a use case, but I'll wait till we get to Artemis so we can paint the full picture. But getting back to the tier list, and no, I said I was going to mainly put niche champions down in C tier, but with his divinity boosting and his core turn reduction and stacking damage increase, I just think he's going to be great for bosses, and I think he's just going to be a A overall. Ares is, I think, someone I rate higher than other people from tier lists I've seen. He's a strength slayer, combined with chaos from the Olympus faction. Leader bonus 30% crit damage in arena battles. His basic attacks one enemy 3 times and decreases the target's defense by 2%, stacking up to 10 times. Each strong hit also decreases the target's initiative by 5, stacking up to 10 times. And I think this basic could be real interesting depending on the wording. So it just says attack 3 times and decrease the defense by 2%. If it's per hit and you're getting 3 stacks per basic, it's going to be real easy to get up to the 10 stacks. And a real quick way to decrease the target's defense. And the second part of the ability reads each strong hit will decrease the target's initiative. So I'm thinking it is by hit, since the second part's by hit. It would be weird if the first part was per use and the second part was per hit. And decreasing 50 initiative isn't the biggest deal, but even though he has an arena bonus, leader bonus, I think his basic makes him a good hero for bosses, where you're decreasing the defense and initiative over the course of a long fight. It will obviously matter more. His core is 4 turns, scrolls to 3, attack all enemies, ignore shield and barrier on each target. If the attack is a strong hit, remove all shield and barrier from each target. And if an enemy is defeated, increase this hero's divinity by 10%. I think this is a kind of sneaky way to bring 2 nukers into your arena setup. You know you're going up against a Heimdall or another hero like Athena that you know is going to put up a big shield or barrier. You can kind of run the standard arena team with a booster or a debuffer, and then Ares is kind of your stripper, and then you have another nuker after Ares. So if we skip down to his passive, each time an enemy receives a debuff increases this hero's chance to strong hit by 5% on their next ability. So you go into the arena battle, your booster boosts, your debuffer throws out some debuffs. Let's say he throws 2 debuffs on each enemy, so you got 8 debuffs. You have 40% increased chance to strong hit, and now you're throwing out your core ability. You're ignoring shield and barrier, so you're doing some significant damage to the enemy team. But then if you strong hit, you're removing all the shield and barriers. So if you don't finish off the enemy team, now you have your other nuker. He's free and clear to finish off what's left of the enemies. I know 2 nukers probably isn't the best arena strat, but if you're going into these strong, tanky, stall defenses, 2 nukers might be something to look into. You have a good chance of going faster than the stall defenses, and if you got the extra nukes, it might just help you get through the battle quicker. Getting into his ultimate, 0 divinity base, and the cost is 1,000, and I love this ultimate. It might just be past trauma from raid, getting stuck in waves, going against Paragon, walking away from the screen, putting your phone down, coming back later, and your team's still beating on that unkillable Paragon, and you just can't get through the wave, because now you're stuck in that never-ending loop. Well, his ultimate is built to prevent that. Now granted, I have heard Simon himself complain in videos about raid about getting stuck on waves like Paragon and other unkillable heroes in different waves. So I think by design, they'll do what they can to avoid that. But like I said, from the past trauma, I love this ultimate ability. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit ignores Protect, Intercept, Immortal, and Ward. So you're hitting through the 2 abilities that'll keep heroes alive, Immortal and Ward. And obviously ignoring Protect and Intercept also helps get your damage through. And if the attack is strong hit, also ignores 20% of the target's defense. So just an added bonus if you're able to get a strong hit. Obviously Affinity will come strong into play into that. You'll have to really pick your target carefully, but I still love that ultimate. And we already went over the passive, so back to the tier list. I like Nukers, I like his ultimate, and even though he's kind of arena based off his leader bonus, I still think he brings great abilities for heroes and waves, for bosses and waves. So I'm actually going to throw him in A tier above Anubis. Alright, on to Apollo's partner hero, Artemis. She's a cunning slayer from Order and Olympus faction with a 26% attack in dungeon battles leader bonus. I'm not in love with attack leader bonuses. Usually I prefer speed to get going or HP for survivability, but if you have a good support champion and need to boost an attack, it still comes in handy. For her basic, attack one enemy 2 times, has a 50 scrolls to 75% chance to place defense down 2 on the target for 2 turns, and if Apollo's on the team, he will join in the attack. And like we saw in his kit, it brings the mend and the chance to place acid on the target. Her core is 4 turns, scrolls to 3, attack all enemies 3 times, increase this hero's divinity by 1% for each enemy hit, which 1% doesn't seem that big of a boost, but all enemies 3 times, it kind of adds up quick, especially if you consider she's kind of a pairing with Apollo, and he reduces the cooldown on your core and increases the ability the more you use it, so she could really get rolling and doing a lot of damage with it. For her ultimate, she starts with 275 divinity, and it costs 1600, attacks one enemy, increase the damage inflicted by 10% for each defeated enemy. Nothing crazy going on there, just a big ol' nuke, and you get bonus damage for each enemy defeated. And for her passive, after defeating an enemy, this hero's next attack will inflict 50% increased damage. So you're getting a 10% increase for each enemy defeated, and you're getting a 50% increased damage on the next hit after defeating an enemy from the passive, which could be great because if your ultimate's full, could go in with the core, attack AoE, defeat some enemies because it's AoE, get the damage boost and the 50% increased damage on your ultimate, and if it's like Alpha, you can use your ultimate on the next ally's turn, and boom, you're unloading your big nuke with the 50% increased damage and all the damage increase from defeating enemies, so it's going to be quite the super nuke. Now earlier I mentioned theory crafting a use case for Apollo. I think this is pretty out there for a boss idea, but I envisioned something similar to the spider in Raid, if you're familiar with Raid, but like with Dracula, and he's got a bunch of little minion bats that he keeps respawning after they're wiped out, and he's inflicting bleeds and all this stuff on your team. So now you have Apollo, super niche for this dungeon battle, where he's placing mends on all allies on his basic, placing acid so it helps take down the boss. And then you have Artemis placing defense down too, also helping to take down the boss. And like I said, all these respawning minions. She's got her core attacking all enemies 3 times, increasing her divinity, just rolling that ultimate and the divinity boosting with Apollo and the AoEs and the increased damage from defeating enemies. Now that's just me totally spitballing. I have no idea if there's a boss like that, but even if it's not Dracula, I wouldn't be too surprised if there's a boss with a bunch of minions that these two are great for that encounter. With all that being said, I think on her own, she's not that crazy of a slayer. I think it'll take a bit of enabling to really boost her, so I'm going to throw her down in B tier for now. Now we got Athena, and if you saw my pulls video, I did a summon video recently, and spoiler alert, right near the end of my summons, got an Athena. I was super excited to pull her. I think I was a little more in shock than my excitement showed, but I'm super pumped to have her on my main account, and I think there's only one hero I might switch her out for. But getting into her kit, she is a Wisdom Defender, aligned with Order from the Olympus faction, with a 33% defense in arena battles, leader bonus, and her basic attacks one enemy, defense and attack, place defense up 2 on all allies for 1 turn. I think it's a real strong basic, placing a nice defense buff on all allies to help improve survivability. It's always nice having an AoE buff or debuff on your basic, because you know it's a real reliable source, and it might take some manual play, but you know you can have it up when you need it, as long as you plan for it correctly. Getting into her core, 4 turns, scrolls to 3, place shield. I know I said I wouldn't really go into the multipliers, but as of right now, I believe she still has the strongest shield at 400% defense. But like I said, they still have to look at the multipliers, so take that with a grain of salt. She should keep having a really strong shield, and she places that shield on all allies and reduces the damage inflicted to allies by 5%, stacking up to 3 times. So that's nice. Once you get around to the core 3 times, you get a 15% damage reduction. So just off those 2 abilities alone, great support with the defense up, shielding, and damage reduction. I think her ultimate is a real standout ability. She starts with 300 base divinity, and it costs 1600. Attacks all enemies with a 80 scrolls to 100% chance to place Petrify on each target for 1 turn. And the big thing about this is if Athena is under a shield, the Petrify cannot be resisted or blocked. And I know you need the shield, but I think it's pretty nutty that you have this Petrify that can't be resisted or blocked. And she's going to be placing a big shield on her core, so you have a good chance of getting back to her ultimate with the shield still up. And now you're just taking a turn away from the enemy team. And on top of losing their next turn, the divinity, any increased divinity effects on that enemy are reduced by 50%. And now her passive, each time an ally is attacked under shield, heals the hero for 50% of the damage inflicted to the shield. If the shield is depleted or removed, has a 50% chance to place Petrify on the enemy for 1 turn. So you have even more control in the passive, and not just Athena specifically, but each time an ally is attacked and they're under shield, you're going to get heals, and if it runs out or is removed, the enemy's going to lose another turn. I think Athena has a pretty nutty kit, and can just go straight on over to S tier. Up next we have another really fun hero, Cizin. Although I think on the recent episode of Podforge, Adam said it was pronounced Cizin, something like that. Probably doing the correct pronunciation wrong still. I'm going to keep going with Cizin just because that's what we're used to for the past little bit. He is a strength slayer from Chaos and the Amayakan faction. With a 30% attack in dungeon battles leader bonus. Already gave my thoughts about not loving attack leader bonuses, so I think that's the weakest part of his kit, but I think his kit's really strong. His basic attacks all enemies with a 40 scrolls to 60% chance to place acid on each target for 2 turns. Doesn't sound super crazy, but 60% you're going to be landing it more than you don't. It's AoE, so you're going to be landing it on multiple enemies. And acid, we already went over, super strong. You're going to be disabling armor sets on all the enemies that you landed on. So that's a pretty huge basic. His core is a 4-turn cooldown, scrolls to 3. Attacks all enemies with a 75 scrolls to 100% chance to place Blaze 2 on each target for 2 turns. So we have another AoE attack, and you're placing another strong debuff with Blaze, and you'll be causing dot damage onto the whole enemy team. His ultimate, his base is 275 divinity, costs 1600 divinity, attacks all enemies, then activates acid and blaze on each target, also places precision on this hero for 1 turn, and precision we just learned guarantees attacks are strong hits, which is pretty busted considering his whole kit is AoE. Affinity might come into play here, but basically he's going to be strong hitting the entire enemy team, and his passive, if an enemy is under acid, reduce their incoming healing by 50%, which is a nice little passive. Enemies are taking all this dot damage, and if you're landing acid, it's going to be tougher to heal him back up. But I think the main selling point on his kit is the AoE attacks and all the debuffs and debuff explosion that he's bringing. He is a slayer, so he should be doing good damage, and AoEs are great for wave clearing, and even on bosses, he's got great debuffs to bring against bosses, so I think this hero will be useful everywhere. And with all that being said, he can go right on over and join Athena in S tier. Now we're into Dracula, Cunning, Brawler, Chaos Alignment from the Virage faction, and as of right now, like Apollo, no leader bonus. His basic attacks 1 enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 75 scrolls to 100 chance to place 1 stack of bleed, and heals 5% of the HP of this hero if the target is under bleed. I think that's how that reads, but again, that might be something that's up for change, so basically just know he'll heal himself if the enemy's under bleed. His core is 6 turns, but scrolls down to 4. Place 2 stacks of bleed on all enemies, and remove 1 random buff from each target. If a buff was removed, place 3 stacks of bleed instead, then grants an extra turn, so that's why he has such a high turn count on his core. Getting extra turn basically decreases the cooldown, so it's really 5 scrolls to 3 with the extra turn mechanic. And we know bleeds are a strong source of dot damage, so being able to place 2 on all enemies with a chance to place 3 is huge. You can max out at 10 stacks, but you're going to get there pretty quick with the 1 stack on the basic plus the stacks on the core. His ultimate starts with 250 divinity, costs 2100, so real expensive compared to the other ones we've seen. And he attacks all enemies 4 times. Before attacking, consumes all stacks of bleed on each target and increases the damage inflicted by 8% per stack of bleed consumed. One of the topics of conversation that's come up is if it's worth consuming the bleeds for the extra damage, or if you just want to leave the dots up and get your damage through all the dot damage that they'll cause. And not to beat a dead horse, but one watch out is they are looking at changing the multipliers, so if they up his damage, could be more worth consuming the bleeds. But overall, I think it's pretty situational. In some long drawn out battles, it might be worth it to leave the bleeds on over the course of a whole battle. But I think if you're looking for a short burst in something like Arena, let's say we're in Arena, so your enemies are probably buffed. You're going to place 3 stacks of bleed, go into your basic, place another stack of bleed on everybody. Now you have 4 enemies with 4 stacks of bleed. Now you're basically doubling your damage, attacking all enemies 4 times if you use the ultimate. That's going to be a pretty crazy attack for, waves or Arena. Again, we'll have to test it when the game actually comes out to see if it's worth using on bosses or leaving the bleeds up for dot damage. Also, probably should have read his passive before I got into all that, but at the start of an enemy's turn, if they're under bleed, increase the damage of this hero's next attack by 10%. So basically, if enemies in that Arena situation are getting their turns off before you get to your ultimate, you're just, boom, now you get an additional 10% damage on top of them already being weakened because they took the dot damage from the bleeds. Now granted, in Arena you probably don't want to let them get a turn, so hopefully you're using your ultimate on an ally's turn, again, if it's like it was an alpha. But he's a brawler, so he does have sustainability, and you might be able to get away with letting the enemies take a turn to get the damage boost. Personally, I really like Dracula. He's a brawler, so he's going to be easy to keep alive and do a lot of damage. Was going to go B. I feel like he's on par with Anubis, and he's bringing all this dot damage that Anubis isn't bringing, so I'm going to throw him on A for now. And again, we can switch this up as we keep going. Now onto one of the coolest looking heroes in Godforge. I think Freya's design is nuts. I said in one of the CC Leaks videos where we saw a different hero with wings that winged heroes are typically my favorite. Some of my favorite designed heroes in Raid had wings. I don't know what it is about them, but they just always come out so cool. And Freya's definitely no exception to that. But getting to her actual kit, Wisdom Hero, Invoker, line with Order, from the Asgard faction, with a leader bonus at 30% crit damage in all battles, which is real interesting. Crit damage kind of falls into the attack category where I don't love it as a leader bonus because I'm looking for speed or survivability, but that's a huge boost and it's in all battles, so that's pretty sweet. For her basic, attack 1 enemy, place Mend on the ally with the lowest HP for 2 turns. Now she is an Invoker, so it's probably not going to be a super strong hit, but it's a nice little basic getting Mend on your ally with the lowest HP to help heal him up. Her core is on a 5-turn cooldown, scrolls down to 3. Equalize an ally's turn meter equal to the enemy with the highest turn meter, then increase the turn meter of all allies by 20%. Also permanently increase this hero's healing by 5% to 4 times. I think her core is super interesting for some strats, but I think the best use case is for a sweet blender strat in Arena. You build her super fast. You can build your nukers super slow, but super high attack and crit damage and strong hit chance, and max everything out since you don't have to worry about speed or survivability in the blender comp, because your whole strat is built on going first. She goes first, and you boost your joint attacker to the same speed as the enemy with the highest speed, or highest turn meter. And then you give that 20% boost, boosting your team to go first. So now your joint attacker goes right after Freya, and smashes with all your nukers. She's going to be huge for those. And then if you use her in longer boss battles, her permanent increase to her healing will add up over the course of a long drawn out battle. Getting into her ultimate, 325 base divinity, cost is 1600. Place attack up and sharpen up on all allies for 2 turns. Then attack 1 enemy, then attack all enemies. Increase the attack and crit damage of each ally by 10%, up to 5 times. So again, up to 5 times will be huge for longer drawn out boss battles. She's an invoker, so I don't think it'll be the craziest AoE nuke, but going back to the blunder strat, if you can get her built so she gets her ultimate when you boost your joint attack hero, she can use her ultimate to boost all your damage dealers, and then just make the blunder even more ridiculous with all the bonus that she's providing your team. And her passive, again, is kind of more for longer battles. When an ally inflicts a critical hit, heals the ally by a % of the initiative. I think Freya's a little tough to place because it'll take some real careful use to get the most out of her abilities. But then again, over the course of a long battle, all her bonuses will really add up and get the team moving pretty quick. I think I'm going to place her near the top of A tier. Now we're on to Fujin, Cunning Hero, Defender, lined with Chaos, in the Izumo faction, and he has a 50 resistance and an all battles aura. Basic, attack all enemies, with a 30% scrolls to 50% chance to place resistance down on each target for 2 turns. If Rajin is on the same team, he will join in the attack, and we'll get to Rajin, but basically when he's joining, he'll be attacking 3 random enemies and placing a barrier on himself and Fujin if the enemies are under a debuff, which if you have Fujin placing an AoE resistance down, may not be the strongest debuff, but now you have Rajin coming in and getting that barrier for attacking enemies with defense with the debuff. As cores, 5-turn cooldown, scrolls to 3, attack all enemies and place Protect 2 on all allies except this hero. Also places Stalwart on all allies for 1 turn, so it'll block disables while Stalwart's up, and it'll also remove disables when it's placed on the allies. And for a bonus, if Rajin is on the team, place Ward on him, so Rajin won't be able to take any damage. For his ultimate is Base Divinities 250, cost 1950, transfers 1 debuff from each ally to this hero, then attack 1 enemy, transfers all debuffs from this hero to the target enemy, and for each debuff transferred, increase all allies' barrier. If Rajin's on the team, transfer all debuffs from Rajin to this hero. So it's a nice little cleanse. You're only getting rid of 1 debuff, so it's not the strongest, but still helpful. And again, I think him and Rajin together are real powerful. Not so sure about Fujin on his own. Sorry, I feel like I keep butchering his name. One thing I don't love about the ultimate is you basically need Rajin or another hero that brings barrier. Otherwise, the increase all allies barrier is kind of useless when he doesn't even place it himself. His passive is really strong. Reduces the damage received by all allies from AoE attacks by 30%. If you play Raid, you know Duchess has a similar passive, and it's super strong. My concern with that is if it's going to be coded the same as Raid, whereas in Raid you don't mind throwing Duchess in the lead because she's got a speed in all battles aura, but she needs to be in that leader spot or to reduce the AoE damage to all the heroes that come after her in the battle sequence. So if Godforge is coded the same way, you'll have to put Fujin in the lead spot and you're stuck with his resistance aura. Otherwise, you're going to have 1 ally in the lead not getting the damage reduction from his passive. So more to come on that as well. Fujin, I don't hate, but I think he's going to be our first C tier champion. Like I said, C tier is not necessarily bad, just pretty niche. I think he's pretty weak if he's not paired with Rajin. And if he's not paired with Rajin, he definitely needs a barrier champion to help get the most out of his ultimate. And my other concern is his passive. If it's coded like Raid, he has to be on the lead spot with everyone else behind him to get the benefit of his passive. And that's another weak point because resistance in all battle just ain't it. I know resist teams are a thing, and maybe there are some dungeons where you're going to want to build a strong resist team and the boss does AoE damage. I do believe in one of the podcasts, or maybe it was a video with one of the other content creators that I had chosen on, they basically built bosses first, so they knew what abilities they needed on the heroes to make them useful against bosses. So I feel like Fujin really does have a spot against at least 1 boss, if not multiple. But I think he's really niche to that, and probably not a strong hero to pick from the Godforge quests. Not saying he's a bad hero for the game, just not a top pick from the quests. Now we're on to another really interesting champ, Grendel. He's a strength brawler, lined with Chaos from the Asgard faction. And as of right now, no leader bonus. His basic attacks 1 enemy 2 times. If the target is defeated, this hero gains an extra turn. Granted, defeating an enemy is typically one of the harder conditions to meet. Any skill that has a chance to grant an extra turn, I love. You're just taking down the cooldown on the core that much faster and working towards your ultimate that much faster. And brawlers typically hit hard. Again, we'll have to see what changes they make to the multipliers, but could be a huge basic if you get those extra turns going. Its core, 4-turn cooldown, scrolls down to 3, attacks all enemies with a 75%, scrolls to 100% chance to place Despair for 1 turn. We already went over Despair, real strong disable, prevents buffs or positive effects from being placed, and if it's still up when the hero it's placed on gets their turn, they will miss their turn. And that's on an AoE, so you have a chance for the whole enemy team to miss their turn. And his ultimate, his base divinity is 275, costs 1600, attacks all enemies, after attacking, instantly defeats heroes below 20% max HP, does not work on bosses, increases this hero's HP by 5% up to 6 times for each enemy defeated, also increases HP when attacking a boss. So even though he doesn't get the execute on bosses, he does get the HP gain, which is huge, because he's a brawler, so his damage is based on HP, so he's just increasing his damage each time he attacks a boss, or if you're in a non-boss fight, each time he defeats an enemy. For his passive, for every 10% HP this hero is missing, increase their speed and initiative by 5%. So presumably, he's going to be built with a lot of survivability, so he'll be able to take a hit, and then that will just help boost his speed and get his next turn and his ultimate rolling, which in turn, if you're getting turn kills with the basic, you're getting that extra turn rolling, and all of a sudden you're getting back to skills faster and faster. I really like Grendel's kit with the execute on his ultimate, and still having that built-in damage boost against bosses. He is just a damage dealer at the end of the day, so I think he's on the lower end of S, but I think he's one of the best brawlers, so I am gonna put him up into S tier, although he's really on the border of S and A. On to Hades. Cunning Hero, Disruptor, Chaos, on the Olympus faction. Leader bonus, 25% speed in arena battles. For his basic, attacks one enemy with a 30% scrolls to 50% chance to place Sleep for 1 turn. I don't love his basic. Now, Sleep is a stronger disable in Godforge than typically is in other games in this genre. It kind of works the same in that the hero it's placed on will lose their turn if it's still on them, but if they get hit, they'll be woken up. But in Godforge, you'll deal 30% more damage to enemies under sleep, so at least, even though you're waking them up, you're getting a nice damage boost. So my problem isn't with the sleep. I think if you're only attacking one enemy and you're only placing sleep for 1 turn, I think it should be a 75 books to 100% chance to land. Now, I don't mind some RNG. I'm not in the camp that every ability should have a 100% chance to place every debuff and disable, but you're placing a 1-turn sleep on one enemy. I don't think you need a 50-50 shot when you're a disruptor, so the point of your class is to be a control hero. If a brawler or a slayer had a 50% chance, that's whatever. But when your main goal is to be a control champ and you're only placing it on one enemy, I think you need better than a 50-50 shot. Alright, we're actually on take 3 of Hades' core, and I think this ability might give me an aneurysm. 4-turn cooldown, scrolls down to 3, attacks all enemies with a 75, scrolls to 100% chance to place Despair for 1 turn. Also places Lock Ultimate for 1 turn on enemies under curse. We'll get to it. Places curse on his passive. What's hurting my head is you're placing Despair on the whole team if it's scrolled 100% chance. So the whole team, enemy team's going to lose their turn. So it's kind of counterintuitive placing Lock Ultimate for 1 turn when the enemy's already going to lose their 1 turn. What was hurting my head is I was racking my brain trying to think of a situation where that enemy might come out of despair and have a chance to use their ultimate, but everything I kept thinking of was they can't get out of the despair to use their ultimate unless they're getting lapped by their teammates or something. So I was thinking another teammate might place a buff to get rid of the despair, and then you can use your ultimate on another hero's turn. So the Lock Ultimate helps block you from doing that until you get a turn. But if the enemies are under despair, they're not going to get a chance to place buffs on the enemy to get rid of the despair. So I went in a bunch of circles, and I think I ended up with, unless I'm missing something, Lock Ultimate is kind of a non-starter unless you don't place the despair. Then it comes in handy if you don't place despair on the one enemy that's under curse. Granted, if you pair Hades with a hero that has an AoE curse, it does become a little stronger. But again, that's if the despair doesn't land. So I think I'm not in love with the core either, even though despair is really strong AoE. Onto his ultimate. 275 base divinity, 1500 cost, attacks all enemies 2 times. Again, he's a disruptor, so it's probably not like a nuke or anything, but should be a decent hit. AoE 2 times. First attack will decrease the target's turn meter by 20%. Second attack will place speed down for 2 turns. Also places initiative down 2 for 2 turns on enemies under curse. I almost feel like the cooldown or the turn count should be flip-flopped with the core. Place lock ultimate for 2 turns, initiative down for 1 turn. That way there the lock ultimate is still up when you come out of despair. First initiative down just lasting the 1 turn. Or screw it, make them strong and have them both 2 turns. But yeah, anyways, that's a pretty crazy ultimate for Arena. Obviously he already has the speed leader bonus. And now if you get to go first, you're decreasing the turn meter and placing speed down on all enemies, so you're really giving your team a great jump to go first. And his passive at the start of this hero's turn, place Curse 2 for 1 turn on the enemy with the highest attack. When an enemy under curse is defeated, place Curse 2 for 1 turn on a living enemy with the highest attack. Curse 2 cannot be dispelled or resisted. So that's super strong that it can't be dispelled or resisted. You're going to reduce incoming damage and the strength of shields and barriers. It's Curse 2, so you're basically going to be cutting it in half. Taking a minute to think about his passive. And I think I like that he's placing it on the enemy with the highest attack. In theory, it might not be great putting it on the person with the highest attack, because that might be their glass cannon, might be their weakest hero anyways. But I think it's good to place it on them, because if you have your defenders coming in trying to shield and barrier and protect the glass cannon, now you have reduced shield and barrier on him, so he's easier to take out. And then once you take him out, boom, it goes on to the next living enemy with the highest attack. So you kind of methodically take out the enemy team that way. So I don't think the passive is nuts. It is pretty nice getting the curse out there, just to be determined how effective it is and how it works with his core and his ultimate. You might need the setup of another hero that places curse to really make the most of it. I don't love his kit, and he's pretty niche, but I think I'm going to leave him on B tier just because of how important we know the speed meta can be in Arena. You know what? Mid-sentence, I'm bumping him down to C. Pulling his kit back up. Said his ultimate was huge for Arena, but what are the chances that you can open up with full divinity to place this first? To get the enemy's speed down to boost your team to the front. Granted, if he goes first, you still have despair. Kind of crossed it out instead of circling it. And opening with despair is still great. I don't love that you can't push back the enemy team at the start of the battle. I don't know why I felt the need to draw on that, but we did it. So yeah, I really don't hate Hades that much, but I think he's pretty niche. So throwing him down to C tier. If you skipped around the chapters and missed it earlier, C tier isn't necessarily like the worst tier. I just think these are niche champions that aren't great to lock in from Godforge quests because of how niche they are. Alright, after Hades hurt my head, we're on to Heimdall. Should be nice and easy getting through his kit. He is a strength defender, lined with Porter from the Asgard faction. Leader bonus, 30% defense in arena battles. He's one of the champions specifically I've heard that was nerfed from Alpha because of his leader bonus. Granted, there were some other changes to his kit that could be considered nerfs from Alpha, but this is one of the kits in particular that was all battles in Alpha, but was never intended to be. But yeah, getting into his basic, attack one enemy, transfer a random debuff from this hero to the target. If any burn, bleed, or acid debuffs are transferred, activate them after transferring. I think it's solid for a basic. Obviously, random isn't the favorite thing to read in a kit, but if it is a burn, bleed, or acid, you're activating it after transferring, so it's a nice little bump of damage on top of the attack. His core, 5-turn cooldown, scrolls to 4, place retaliate and intercept on all allies for 2 turns, then attack all enemies. Super strong core ability. Retaliate is the equivalent of counterattack in other games in the genre, and going back to Raid, because that's where I have the most experience in these type of games, AoE counterattack is so strong. It was only on 3 champions for years, and I think they've added a couple since they introduced mythicals, but for years you had 1 epic and 2 legendaries, and those were the only heroes that had AoE counterattacks. So, super strong ability. We know Heimdall was one of the top heroes from Alpha, and that retaliate was a huge part of it, and also he's a defender, so you want him defending the rest of the team, and he's placing intercept, so he will take the damage from any ally that's attacked while they have intercept up. Granted, in Alpha, he was a really good nuker. We don't know if that nuker status will carry over to early access. His ultimate, his base divinity is 325, cost 1450, place defense up 2 on all allies for 2 turns, and place shield on all allies. Then place protect 2 on all allies, except this hero for 2 turns, and these buffs cannot be removed when placed on heroes from Asgard. Presumably, eventually Godforge will have some type of faction wars content, so you could be running an all Asgard team in Faction Wars, or even if there's some good dungeon comps that are all Asgard. Even though it's Asgard specific, it's a huge boost that the buffs can't be removed. But again, you want your defenders to defend, and he's placing defense up to increase survivability, placing shield to increase survivability, and placing protect on all allies, so he's taking a percent of the damage that his ally would take when attacked. And his passive, allies under any buff have a 50% chance to reflect any debuff received, which I think is a huge passive. He's got buffs on his core and ultimate. You have a really good chance of keeping buffs up on your allies, and then you have a 50-50 shot to reflect any debuff received. Now this game does separate debuffs from disables, so the way it reads, I think your team is still going to be able to be disabled without a chance of it being reflected. That's something we can test in early access, but it's still incredibly strong, reflecting debuffs, particularly in alpha. Reflecting blazes back on the boss in the Fafnir battles was huge, so should be a real strong ability. With the changes to his kit, I don't think he's a top #1 pick like he was before, but overall I think he's still one of the strongest heroes you can take coming out of Godforge quests, and definitely belongs up in S tier. Now we got Hercules. He's a strength brawler, lined with order from the Olympus faction, no leader bonus, basic, attack all enemies, with a 75 scrolls to 100% chance to place acid on each target for 2 turns. It is a pretty busted basic. You have an AoE attack with a 100% chance to place acid, like we talked about, disabling armor, 5% HP damage, acid's huge debuff, AoE 2 turns, huge. His core, 4 turns, scrolls to 3, attack 1 enemy, place stun for 1 turn. If this hero is under immortal, increase the damage inflicted by 100%, and place stun for 2 turns instead. Now there's no percentage chance, so I'm assuming as long as you hit and don't weak hit, you're placing stun for 1 turn. So in that way it's strong that you're just placing stun, but overall without immortal, it's a little weak. Immortal, getting the increase the damage inflicted by 100% in a 2-turn stun. Now that's huge. Even though it's only against 1 enemy, it's still huge, locking out an enemy for 2 turns if you have immortal. We also know from alpha, he has a super cheap ultimate that gets rotating quick, which is why having immortal up for the core I don't think is a huge issue. His base divinity is 100, cost is 500, and he increases its HP by 5%, stacking up to 12 times, and place barrier on this hero. When it max stacks, place immortal on this hero for 1 turn. Skimmed his kit. I spoke too soon about getting immortal up for the core. Having to get 12 stacks before you get immortal placed on him, yeah, you might not have it up that much for the core. So apologies for that. So even though that weakens his core a bit, you're boosting your damage and survivability since he's a brawler, and it's super easy to get his ultimate. So he has some wave utility since his basic is an AoE, but he'll rarely shine in boss battles, placing acid on his basic and getting those 12 stacks to start really ramping up his damage. And of course his passive, one of the most broken things from Alpha Wave 1 at least, prevents this hero's death and heals them to 100% of their max HP. We don't see it on this kit. I believe they're still talking about what cooldown systems they want on what heroes, but basically there will be a cooldown, so he won't forever prevent his death and get healed 100%. It'll be something like occurs once per wave, or I don't know, could have a classic, 3-turn cooldown. So something we'll have to wait and see what the dev team comes out with. But either way, since he is a brawler, should be stacked with HP and not that easy to kill anyways, so shouldn't have to rely on the passive too much in theory. I'm a sucker for a basic AoE. I think he actually has more utility than I give him credit for initially, so I'm going to bring him to the top of A tier. We know Acid's going to be strong on bosses. AoE basic is strong on waves, and he's just always increasing his damage with his ultimate. And then he has the survivability of a brawler. I kind of debated myself for a minute, but I'm going to leave Hercules there for now. On to Isis. Cunning hero, invoker, chaos aligned, from the Aru faction. She has 70 resistance in all battles, leader bonus, which is a pretty big boost over Fujin's when he only has 50 resistance in all battles. Again, I still don't think resistance is one of the better leader bonuses, but definitely comes in handy if you're building a resistance team. Basic, attack 1 enemy with a 50 scrolls to 65% chance to steal a random buff, then spread the buff to all allies. Isn't the craziest ability, but you get a 50-50 shot that scrolls into a better than 50-50 shot to steal a buff and spread it to all your allies. So it's just a net positive. I say net positive, obviously if you don't steal a random buff, it's just nothing, but if you do steal a buff, it's a positive. Her core, 6 turns, scrolls down to 4. Place a shield on all allies, then place defense up 2 on all allies for 3 turns. Grants this hero an extra turn. Again, we see a high cooldown, but she has the extra turn mechanic bringing it down, which is actually huge in this case, because she places defense up on all allies for 3 turns, and she gets an extra turn, turning this into a 3-turn cooldown once it's scrolled. So you're basically always going to have defense up on your allies. I think she loses defense up because she loses a turn count when she gets the extra turn, but as long as she's faster than your allies, she'll keep it up on all of them for 3 turns until she gets back to her ability. Her ultimate, she starts with 250 base divinity, costs 1650, revive all allies with 50% HP and 50% turn meter. If Horus is revived by this ability, place Radiance 2 on him for 2 turns. It's not a whole lot of revivers, so I think in that regard, it's a pretty strong ultimate, just being able to have a reviver. Now, in theory, you don't want to be reviving a lot, but it's a nice to have if you need it. But since the Phoenix buff revives with a 50% HP and 50% turn meter, I would love to see just like a little increase, even if it's 60 HP, 60 turn meter, or 75% HP, 75% turn meter. I'm not looking for something off the charts, but something better than a buff that can be placed would be nice. I know they both have their own use cases, so it probably doesn't really make sense wanting one better than the other, since a revive can happen anytime when an ally's down, and Phoenix is a buff that has to be placed before they die. But I don't know, it just, at this moment, makes sense in my head. I think it's also just because you're not getting anything else from the ultimate unless you have Horus on the team. I think that's the other reason. I feel like it should stand out a little bit more. But onto her passive, at the start of this hero's turn, remove all debuff and disable from the ally with the lowest HP, and then heal them equal to 10% of this hero's max HP. So pretty cool that you're doing a full cleanse on one ally. And the nice thing about the heal, even though it's 10%, it's of this hero's max HP. So if you happen to be healing a nuker with 20,000 HP, you're not doing a little baby heal based off their HP. You're doing a heal off Isis, who, maybe not early game, but once you start getting to end game, you should be able to building with like 100,000 HP, since you don't really have to focus on other stats for her. So that will end up being a pretty decent heal off the passive. It is tough, but I just don't think she's bringing enough to the table right now compared to some of these other heroes. I still think she'll be great for your account, but overall, in comparison, I think I'm going to drop her down in B tier here. So next up, we have a couple heroes that we know are work in progress. So this might be what I use D tier for. D tier might be work in progress tier. I don't want to drain into the kit too much since we don't know how work in progress it is, but he is a Wisdom Invoker, order aligned from the Azumo faction, and as it stands, leader bonus 20 initiative in arena battles, basic attacks one enemy, increase the divinity of all allies by 5%. If Izanami is on the team, she will join the attack. His core, as it is, 6 scrolls down to 4, place initiative up 2 on all allies for 2 turns, reduce the divinity cost of all allies by 10% up to 3 times. His ultimate starts base divinity of 100, cost 1100, place attack up 2 on all allies, then increase the divinity of all allies by 20%, also increase the damage of each ally's next ultimate ability by 30%. If Izanami is on team and has been defeated, revive her with 50% HP and 100%. And for a passive, for every 5 buff placed on the enemy team, activates this hero's basic ability against the enemy with the highest turn meter. Really cool kit. If I was placing him off how it reads now, I would have him pretty high up in A tier, but we don't know how work in progress it is, so I'm gonna throw him down to D. We're gonna cross out D. Excuse my messy writing. That's now our work in progress tier. Next up, we have his partner champion, Izanami, Wisdom Disruptor, aligned with Chaos from Azumo faction. Obviously, same situation, work in progress. No leader bonus as it stands. Attack one enemy with 40, scrolls to 60% chance to place initiative down 2 on the target for 2 turns. Decent basic, and just a reminder, that's what she'll be coming in with to join the attack when she joins in with Izanagi. Her core is a 5-turn cooldown, scrolls down to 4. Remove shield from all enemies, then attack all enemies with a 75, scrolls to 100% chance to place corrupt on the target with the highest HP for 3 turns, and that will allow her to steal buffs from that enemy while they have corrupt on them. And if Izanagi is on the team, he will join the attack using his core ability, which is huge. gets him placing his initiative up on all allies and reducing the divinity cost of all allies. Again, as it stands, work in progress. Now for her ultimate, attacks all enemies with a 75, scrolls to 100% chance to place speed down 2 and curse 2 on each target for 2 turns, then decrease their turn meter by 20%. I think one of the issues with disruptors is their most disruptive skill is their ultimate, and we don't know how easy it'll be to get their ultimate up at the start of a fight. So this would be a huge arena ability, getting speed down on enemies, curse on enemies, and decreasing their turn meter. But if you can't lead into the battle decreasing their turn meter, you already lost the speed race and it's over, you know? So I think that's part of the issue with disruptors. And for her passive, when this hero attacks an enemy under initiative down, decrease their turn meter by 5%. Kinda weak on her own, but if she's paired with an initiative down hero or Izanagi, where she's joining the attacks and placing initiative down when she joins attacks, gets a little stronger. I think she's more kinda low B tier if I were to place her as her kit stands now, but we declared D as the work in progress tier, so we're gonna slap her down there for now. But I do think she'd be around B tier on her current kit. Now we have Lamashtu, another interesting hero. She's a cunning hero, Slayer, aligned with Chaos from the Ecker faction. No leader bonus as it stands. Attack one enemy 2 times. If the target is defeated, increase the damage of the next AoE attack by 50%. Again, defeating an enemy, not the easiest condition to meet, but you get a nice boost to your next AoE attack, which her core and ultimate are both AoEs. Core, 5 turns, scrolls down to 3. Attack all enemies. If this ability defeats 3 or more enemies, reset its cooldown, and increase this hero's divinity by 200. This gets me thinking there's going to be boss with respawning minions, because if you're in arena or a wave and you defeat 3 or more enemies, you're basically taking out the entire wave, except for maybe a straggler or 2 if it's a wave of 5. I don't love the core, but in that scenario with a boss with a bunch of spawning minions, now we're talking a bit, but also pretty niche. Our ultimate, base is 0 divinity, cost 1000, place attack up 2 on this hero for 2 turns, then attack all enemies. For each enemy already defeated, summons a demon of pestilence, which explodes on impact, triggering soul eruption with a 50 scrolls to 70% chance of placing vulnerable and acid on all enemies for 2 turns, and vulnerable pairs well with acid because it increases the damage inflicted by debuffs. Her ultimate triggers soul eruption, which is our passive. When this hero defeats an enemy, they explode, inflicting damage to all enemies, which ignores 100% defense but cannot be critical. Seen some talk about how effective is this really. Not your numbers guy. Purely from an interesting mechanic viewpoint, I do like it. I think it's cool just getting that bonus damage, even if it's not that strong. And the fact that she gets it on her ultimate for enemies that were already defeated, spawning this demon that triggers soul eruption, and she gets a chance to trigger it again if she kills people with her ultimate. I'm not saying it'll be the biggest nuke in the world, but I think it's interesting anyways, and I think it's just a generally fun ability to play around with. That being said, I don't think a fun ability makes for the best hero to select for Godforge quests. I'm going to throw her down to C, because I think she's really niche, where you want a lot of enemies, and I don't know how many opportunities you're going to have to face a lot of enemies. And we're on to Loki, a hero we know got big changes after Alpha. He is a cunning hero, disruptor, aligned with Chaos, Asgard faction. Leader bonus of 50 accuracy in arena battles. His basic attack one enemy with a 75 scrolls to 100% chance to place charm on the target for 1 turn. Basically with charm, the enemy that is charmed will take any attacks that the hero placing, in this case Loki, the charm would be taking. The only exception is if the charmed hero attacks Loki, then the charmed hero won't take the damage that he's attacking Loki with. Is that the right way to say it? But basically the charmed hero will take all other damage for Loki, or all other attacks for Loki. Cool ability, I know it only attacks 1 enemy, but you can only have 1 charm active on a team at a time, so it makes sense that it's not AoE. Core, 5 turn, scrolls down to 3, place sleep on all enemies for 1 turn. If the target is already under sleep, increase its duration by 1 turn, and steal 10% of the target's turn meter. I know sleep isn't considered the strongest disable, but I think the hero that's asleep receiving 30% increased damage is really undervalued. I think this core will be sneaky dangerous in arena. because you're sleeping the whole team, so they're all going to miss their turn unless they're attacked, and if they're attacked, they're taking 30% more damage. I don't know how often you'll be getting back to this ability while a hero's still under sleep, unless you have other heroes placing sleep on the team, so I don't think the second part of the kit will come into effect that often, but I think sleeping the whole enemy team will be pretty strong with damage reduction. With the increased damage. His ultimate, base 0, cost 1000. Attacks all enemies with a 80, scrolls to 100% chance to place Corrupt on each target for 2 turns. So he'll steal any buffs placed on the ally team for 2 turns, or 2 buffs I should say. And it'll last for 2 turns if the buffs aren't placed. Then place a Vanish and Backfire on this hero for 2 turns. And Backfire is a new debuff we just found out about. When this hero would gain a non-resisted debuff, prevent it, and apply the debuff to the enemy instead. I think it's pretty niche. I'm sorry, when I first read non-resisted, I was thinking like an irresistible debuff. I think it just literally means he didn't resist a debuff, and it's getting prevented and kicked back to the enemy. So not as niche as I thought. It's actually a real handy way to block 1 debuff. Or actually 2, because it's on for 2 turns. And his passive, when sleep expires or is removed from an enemy, decrease their turn meter by 20%. Now obviously when it expires, the enemy will be getting a turn, so unless they get pulled back 20% turn meter from their full turn meter at the start of their turn, it's not that useful when it expires, but in theory you're going to be hitting these enemies to wake them up, so when it's removed, then it'll be a nice little turn meter decrease if the sleep falling off because they're attacked counts as being removed. Really torn with Loki. I think his kit is better than it looks on paper. Throw him down in C tier for now. I think he's pretty niche to arena, although the sleep will have pretty good wave utility, but we're gonna slap him down into C for now. Although I think we're underrating Loki for some reason. Just hasn't clicked yet. On to Metzli. He is a Wisdom Invoker order. It's from Mayakon. Leader bonus of 20% speed in all battles. Will say I know her kit is relatively niche, but I love the speed in all battles are. Her basic, attack 1 enemy and restore 20% destroyed HP of the ally with the most destroyed HP. I know it doesn't sound like a whole heck of a lot, but like I said earlier, we know heroes were designed with bosses in mind, so this is probably going to be huge for one of the boss encounters, if not more. Her core, 5 turns, scrolls down to 4. Remove 2 random debuff from all allies, then place block debuff on each target for 2 turns. It says on each target for 2 turns. I think it means on all allies for 2 turns. And it will also heal all allies. It says 20% HP. Doesn't specifically say her HP, so I'm not sure if it's her HP or just 20% of everybody's, or everybody gets 20% of their own. Ultimate, base 350 divinity, costs 1650, revives all defeated allies with 40% health and turn meter, also restores 50% of each ally's destroyed HP, and increase their divinity by 20%. I'm not sure if that's dependent on the revive, or if you can just use this ultimate whenever and always get the restored destroyed HP and divinity increase. I'm assuming you can, because if it was built with a boss encounter in mind, you're going to want to be restoring your destroyed HP and not necessarily have it tied to a revive. I will say, kind of like Isis, I don't love the low health and turn meter from her revive. I know I wanted Isis higher than 50%, but I think Metzli should be at least 50% because she is bringing the restore and divinity on her revive. So she is bringing more to the table than Isis, I think. I feel like 40's low. I don't know. Maybe it's just my bias from other games and they're more progressed with crazy revivers, but I feel like she should be at least 50% just because she's so niche with the rest of her abilities. And her passive restores 20% of the target's destroyed HP when they receive a buff. Should be pretty useful. I mean, obviously she's only bringing the block debuff on her core, so she's not going to be throwing up buffs that often. But again, if you're running into a boss encounter, you're going to bring at least one hero that's throwing up buffs on your team, unless you have some crazy comp that's just wiping out the boss. If you have a classic composition, you're going to have a hero bringing buffs on the team, so this passive could play in a lot. I think Metzli should go to C because she's so niche, but just because revives are so rare, even though I know you don't want to be in a bad spot where you need a revive, they're still real handy, so I'm going to throw her in B, even though I do think she's niche and borderline on C. Not because of a bad kit, just because it's so niche. Now we have Morgan Le Fay. Cunning hero, Slayer, blind with chaos from the Avalon. No leader ability as of right now. Basic attacks all enemies with a 35, scrolls to 50% chance to place a vulnerable 2 on all enemies. Also activate a random debuff on each target. It's nice because, as we went over earlier, vulnerable increases the damage inflicted from debuffs. So if she's activating blazes, bleeds, acid, you're going to get that damage boost from the vulnerable. Also, I don't want to go too deep into the multipliers, but I think it's real interesting that she's a slayer with a lot of debuffs, and they brought in attack and accuracy for her multiplier. So not only are you building accuracy to land the debuffs, you're increasing your damage because it's part of your damage multiplier, and you're increasing your chance to strong hit because accuracy helps increase your chance to strong hit. So I think that's really well thought out that they applied attack and accuracy to her multiplier, and we'll see where it ends up for early access to know how strong of a nuker she really is. Her core, 4 turns, scrolls down to 3, attacks all enemies 3 times. Each hit has a 50, scrolls to 75% chance to place 1 of Aether Burn, 2 Blaze 2, Acid on the target for 2 turns, or 1 stack of Bleed at random. Out of all those, I think the only thing we didn't touch on is Aether Burn, which increases weak hit chance and reduces divinity of all allied heroes. Does not reduce boss divinity. And since it's 2, it'll increase weak hit chance by 10% and decrease divinity of all enemies by 6%. It's really random, and it's a 75% chance, but it's a 3-hitter on all enemies. So odds are you're going to end up with some good damage on all the enemies. I'm kind of a fan of it, even though it's random. For her ultimate, base divinity 100, cost 1000. Before attacking, remove any Aether Burn, Bleed stacks, Acid, or Blaze from each target, then attack all enemies. For every 5 debuff removed, increase the damage inflicted by 25%. If 20 or more debuff are removed, increase this hero's turn meter by 100%. I think it's something we'll have to test in early access. I don't know if we'll find out before launch, but it'll be interesting to see if filling her turn meter to 100% boosts her to the next turn, or if it's more like Raid, where you have that crazy turn meter overfill. So boosting to 100% gets your turn meter full, but then you have someone boosted over 100% that still gets to go before you. I'm hoping it's not like the Raid's crazy system, so that 100% just means boom, you go next. Because if you're removing 20 debuffs, you deserve to go next. That's a lot of debuffs to remove. Kind of again gets me thinking boss with a ton of minions, which would be really cool since she has so many AoEs. Removing all those debuffs from all those minions and going back in for another AoE hit to clean up any leftovers. I can see it being really useful in a boss battle like that, especially when all these debuffs, the dot debuffs, are usually the best for bosses. For her passive, this hero gains bonus effects when a debuff activates. Aether Burn increases this hero's divinity by 50. Blaze increases this hero's next core ability damage by 5%. Acid increases this hero's turn meter by 10%. Bleed heals this hero by a percent of her accuracy. So with this randomness, she won't be great for speed tune teams, but if you have a set it and forget it team that just goes in and takes out the bosses or enemies with nukes, she'll be real cool for that. I have a love-hate relationship with randomness. I think I like it until it affects me too negatively, and then I'm like, damn randomness. But right now, I think I like her kit, so I'm going to throw her in B tier. I think the randomness keeps her out of A, but she's up there in B tier for me. Now we're on to Mulan, Cunning Slayer, aligned with Order from the Tian faction, leader bonus at 25% attack in dungeon battles, basic attack one enemy 2 times, critical attacks reduce the target's defense by 2%, stacking up to 10 times. She is a Slayer, so in theory you're going to want to build her with a 100% crit rate, so she should be reducing the defense pretty quickly, attacking 2 times, landing 2 crits. Her core, 4 turns, scrolls down to 3, attack 1 enemy, increase the damage inflicted by 10% for each living enemy. Place Vanish on this hero for 2 turns. And Vanish, like it sounds, she's kind of hidden from the battle. She can't be directly targeted by attacks. And this is another interesting ability for bosses with minions. Even if you have just a standard boss with a couple minions, it's going to be doing 20% increased damage if there's 2 minions still alive. Actually 30% if the boss counts as one of the living enemies. So it doesn't say besides the person you're attacking, it just says for all living enemy, so pretty good boost of damage there. Her ultimate, base 325 divinity, costs 1200, attack 1 enemy 3 times, each hit has a 40, scrolls to 60% chance to place Drain 2 and Hex 2 on the target for 2 turns. So Drain, the target will receive increased damage, 20% for Drain 2. And attackers will also heal for 20% of the damage inflicted. And Hex, all allies of the enemy will receive 10% of the damage inflicted to the hero under Hex, and the damage is half for AoEs. If the target is defeated, decreases this hero's divinity cost by 10%, stacking up to 3 times. Pretty niche having to defeat a target and have it be with the ultimate, but decreasing in divinity so you get to her ultimate faster. Ultimately it'll help. And if it's a longer boss with minions, again, even if it's just like standard 2 minions, you happen to pop off with the ultimate a couple times on the minions, now you're getting your divinity pretty quick, or getting your ultimate full pretty quick, and dropping more nukes on the boss. Passive increases the chance to strong hit by 20% when inflicting damage under Vanish. She's going to have a pretty high uptime on Vanish, since it's a 2-turn Vanish on a 3-turn cooldown when it's scrolled, so getting that boosted chance to strong hit, pretty solid. I think it'll mostly come into play if you're attacking a hero that's the weak affinity to Mulan. I'm not sure it's something you want to build their whole kit around, but it's a nice little bonus. Something about Mulan screams that she's sneaky good. On paper, I just think she's pretty niche, so I'm going to drop her down at the top of C. Really tempted to go B, even possibly ahead of Metzli and Artemis. But yeah, let's go C. We got Pazuzu, Cunning, Disruptor, aligned with Chaos from the Ecker faction. No leader bonus. Attack one enemy with a 75 scrolls to 100% chance to place accuracy down for 2 turns, and a 75 scrolls to 100% chance to remove 1 random debuff. Pretty nice having a 100% chance to land accuracy down. Stealing 1 random, or removing 1 random buff isn't crazy, but at least you can target, the other team's disruptor or somebody they have to worry about landing their debuffs or disables, and he can land it pretty reliable on that enemy. His core, 5 turns, scrolls down to 4. Attack all enemies with a 75 scrolls to 100% chance to place Corrupt on each target for 2 turns. If the target is aligned with Order, place Fear on the target for 1 turn. I haven't kept up with a lot of the chatter today. I can't find Fear on my little cheat sheet, so I'm wondering if Fear has been replaced by Terrify, and it'll increase their divinity cost by 50%. But that is very much just a guess, so I'm not 100% sure what the deal is with Fear right now. But Corrupt on all enemies is nice, stealing any buffs that they try and place on each other. It's nice blocking them from getting them, and Pazuzu ending up with them. His ultimate, base 300, costs 1550. Attack all enemies 3 times. Each hit has a 50, scrolls to 75% chance to place Vulnerable 2, Acid, and Curse 2 on each target for 2 turns. You're kind of really setting up the enemy to take a lot of damage, reducing the strength of shields and barriers, reducing incoming healing, all from Curse, placing the Acid in the Vulnerable 2 so they take more damage from the Vulnerable 2, or take more damage from the Acid because of the Vulnerable 2. For his passive, when an enemy gains a buff, increase this hero's turn meter by 10%. If the enemy gains 3 buffs in 1 turn, this hero gains an extra turn. It's a great cut-in mechanic. I just don't know what you do with the cut-in. You go into your core, they already placed the buff, so placing Corrupt isn't going to block them. If you are fighting an Order team, you're going to get the Fear, which is nice, but like the cut-in, I just wish he had something more to nullify the team. You're going to cut in and decrease the accuracy of their hero that's next in line and steal a buff, I guess. Even if your ultimate's up and you cut in, they could have block buffs on and you're just getting an AoE hit from a disruptor. So I have been seeing a lot of chatter about disruptors being weak, so maybe something they'll do is boost up their multipliers so they won't be quite Slayer level, but maybe it'll end up being a strong hit on his ultimate. I just feel like something's missing from his kit. Yeah, I don't know what's missing. I feel like maybe if they got rid of the random buff removal on his basic, and maybe if he had a AoE remove buffs instead of Corrupt on his core, then you're cutting in and removing buffs, so at least you're doing something with the cut-in. I know I just said I didn't really love his kit, but I'm really on the fence between B and C, and I think I'm going to drop him off in C tier. He's going to have some good utility against bosses with the debuffs he brings, but I just think his kit's missing something to really make it click. Now we're into Perun. Perun. Sorry if I'm butchering it. Not sure which way to go. But he is a strength hero, disruptor, aligned with Order from the Barrage faction. A leader bonus of 25% initiative in arena battles. On his basic, he attacks 1 enemy 2 times with a 50 scrolls to 75% chance to place Speed Down 2 on the target for 2 turns. Nothing too crazy, but a nice way to slow down one of the enemies. I know he has an arena battles leader bonus, but If you're going in against a boss, 2 hits at 75% chance, decent odds to land it, and overall just useful slowing down enemies. On the basic, you can use it pretty frequently if you want to. Core, 4 turns, scrolls down to 3, attack all enemies. With a 75, scrolls to 100% chance to reduce the number of just adding in words. Chance to reduce the turn meter of each target by 20%. I know I brought up earlier how I liked Morgan Le Fay had attack and accuracy in her multiplier. The reason I'm not raving about him having attack and initiative in his multiplier is because he's a disruptor, so I'm not expecting him to hit that hard, but it is a nice bonus. What I really want to say about the core is this is what I was talking about other disruptors missing. You may not be able to lead into the battle with your ultimate, but coming in with an AoE, reduce the turn meter of all enemies by 20%, that's just a great way to set up your team and get them to go before the enemies without having to build crazy speed onto them. Don't get me wrong, still need a solidly speed-tuned team, but helps get it down, and the lower speed requirements, the more you can boost up your nuker's attack. His ultimate, base 350 divinity, cost 1550, attack 7 times at random. Hate that it's random, love seeing 7 times. I think that equalizes with the random. 7 hits is crazy, although we will see crazier coming up soon. Each hit has a 35, scrolls to 50% chance to decrease the target's turn meter by 10%. Additional attacks against the same target reduces the turn meter by 5%. So at most, if you are fighting one enemy, you're going to get a 40% turn meter reduction, which at a 50% rate, you're probably not going to get, but still a decent amount of turn meter reduction, and if you're hitting multiple enemies, it's going to be 10% off each of them. I'm real torn because it's 7 hits, but you have the reduction for hitting same enemy multiple times, so I think 50% is low. I don't think it needs to be 100%, but would like to see like 75, so you're, instead of a 50-50 shot, you've got a better shot at landing. Even, I wouldn't feel great about 65, but 65 would feel a lot better than 50, and I think 75 is the sweet spot, just because you do have the reduced turn meter reduction if you hit the same enemy. If it was 10% across the board, fine, leave it 50-50 shot. But if it drops down to 5% when you hit the same target, let's get it so you're landing it more than you're not. For the passive, when an enemy hero has their turn meter decreased, increase this hero's turn meter by 4%. Basic math is escaping me. But yeah, I still don't think it's broken on the ultimate if you up that 50%. Even if it's 65, 75%, you're still only maxing out at a 28% turn meter increase for Perun. And again, it's not 100%, so you're not going to land it all the time. So you're probably looking more like obviously if it's 50-50, you're looking at like a 16% turn meter increase, or 12 if you're more on the unlucky side. So yeah, I still, with the ultimate, if you bump that up to 65, 75, I don't think it breaks him with the passive. Kind of want to put him up in A tier. Yeah, screw it. I was going to bump him down to B, but we're going to keep him in A. I think his core, being what I want to see in a disruptor, is enough to keep him in A. And hopefully his ultimate gets a little bit of a buff up to a higher chance to land the turn meter decrease. That's my main reason for wanting to move him down to B. But I think because his core is what I want, A tier it is. Alright, on to Quetzalcoatl. Wisdom hero, invoker, aligned with order. I don't know why this gets me every time. I know he's a Myacon, but for some reason I just see that and I'm like, wait, what? Yeah, obviously a Myacon faction. Leader bonus, 21% speed in all battles. Great, love a speed in all battles aura. Basic attacks one enemy and heal all allies. If the attack is a strong hit, place Petrify on the target for 1 turn. The nice thing is he places Sharpen on his ultimate, so you do have an increased chance to land the strong hit for the Petrify. The downside is Quetzalcoatl doesn't bring any debuffs, so you don't really want to build accuracy into his kit. Focus on just landing the Petrify on a single target for 1 turn. The main thing with Quetzalcoatl is speed, and more speed. For his core, 5 turns, scrolls down to 3, increase the turn meter of all allies by 20%, then place speed up 2 on each target for 2 turns. Solid core. Again, I know he's an invoker, but it's what you like to see. You don't know if you'll be able to open the battle with your ultimate, so you jump in, boom, increase turn meter and increase speed with the speed up. Great skill to get your allies going. I mean, we're talking specifically in arena in that situation, but obviously when clearing waves and everything, speed's just going to help you get through everything. His ultimate, 350 base divinity, cost 1,000, place attack up 2, sharpen 2, and accuracy up 2 on all allies for 2 turns. And built into his ultimate, he has a passive, increase the ally with the highest turn meter by 50%. I'm guessing increase the turn meter of the ally with the highest turn meter by 50% when this hero's divinity reaches 100%. I'm not sure if that's how it's supposed to read, but that's a great ability because you can use your ultimate on an ally's turn. You're boosting the ally that already has the highest turn meter, get them their turn quicker while you're at 100% divinity, so you can use your ultimate. Really cool passive. And you're helping almost everybody. Yeah, you're helping everybody with your ultimate. Attack up because the brawlers and defenders are built with attack into their multipliers. So obviously slayers gain the most from it, but you're still helping your defenders and brawlers. Sharpen, increase the chance to strong hit, helping everybody. And accuracy up, further improving your chances to strong hit, and obviously increasing accuracy for your disruptors. And for his passive, when this hero is defeated, revive 2 allies with 50% HP and increase their initiative by 5%, stacking up to 3 times. Occurs once per wave. Nice passive to have in your back pocket. Obviously you don't want 2 of your allies dead and then Quetz dying. I mean you do because it revives the 2 allies, but you know what I mean. You don't want your allies dying. But it is a nice back pocket. Bring people back to life and keep the battle going. Passive. Quetz is speed. And speed is huge in these games, so I'm going S tier. I think these are kind of... I mean, obviously they're totally different heroes. I just think speed's so important. It just inches them over Heimdall. Like, they're on the same page, but totally different heroes. Now we're on to Ra, who I know there's been some speculation. I'm not sure if I've missed anything recently, but I don't believe he was showing up in the pool. Maybe people just weren't showing off their Ra pulls, I don't know. But there was some speculation that from one of the Fateless podcasts, Ra might be one of the heroes available in a bundle that will appear after clearing what's in the campaign for early access. Nothing confirmed, just pure speculation, but he is one of the heroes that we know has got the kit rework since Alpha. And again, I've honestly been kind of out of touch with the Discord the past few days, but I don't believe he was showing up in pulls. But Ra, Wisdom Hero, Slayer, from the Order, from the Aru faction, said from the Order alignment from Aru faction, 30% attack in dungeon battle leader bonus, basic attack 1 enemy, similar to Morgan Le Fay. It's nice, multiplier, attack and accuracy when he's placing debuffs. But yeah, back to the basic, attack 1 enemy with a 75 scrolls to 100% chance to increase the duration of Blaze by 1 turn. If the attack is critical, activate Blaze on the target. I think that's a huge basic. The fact that you're increasing the duration of Blaze by a turn to then activate it. I mean, he's a Slayer, so hopefully with the Slayer, you're going to build a 100% crit rate, and you're going to increase the duration of Blaze, so when you activate it, you don't remove it totally. You get that damage and the bonus of leaving the Blaze up on the enemy. 5 turn scrolls to 4, attacks all enemies, with a 75 scrolls to 100% chance to place Blaze for 3 turns. This ability defeats an enemy, decreases its cooldown by 1 turn. From Alpha, he wasn't a crazy nuker for a Slayer, so I don't know how much utility you'll get out of the decrease the cooldown by 1 turn. I mean, obviously as the battle progresses and enemies are weaker, better chance, but we're not sure if his multipliers equal super nukes yet. But 100% Blaze for 3 turns on an AoE is huge damage on its own. The nice thing about Blaze is you're dealing damage to everybody on the enemy team, and the hero whose turn it is taking double the damage compared to what the rest of the team's taking. So you're placing it for 3 turns on all enemies, so they're just burning each other up. So great core. 3 turns is like an eternity in some battles. His ultimate, 0 base divinity, cost 1,000. Attacks all enemies 3 times, each hit has a 35, scrolls to 50% chance to place defense down 2 and vulnerable 2 on each target for 2 turns. I think I would like to see his ultimate go up to like 1250 or 1500. And again, this be like a 75 or 100% chance to land. You know what? It's attacking 3 times, so I take that back. I'm cool with it as it is. Cheap, get back to it pretty often. Attacking 3 times, so you got a decent chance when you're scrolled to 50%. And then basically you're just setting up the enemies for mass destruction because you're lowering their defense and making them take more damage from the Blaze. As passive, when Blaze on allies or enemies activates, expires, or is removed, increase the damage of the next ultimate by 5%. I'm interested to see how that's coded. I think I'm overthinking it. I think a tick of a cooldown is a Blaze activating, even if it's not from like his basic activating. So I think no matter what, you're going to be getting that extra damage when enemies take a tick from Blaze. So that's a really strong passive, since his ultimate is an AoE 3-time hitter, and we don't know how hard it'll be to get to 1,000, but 1,000 is pretty low cost. When we got the CC leaks for the Ra and Loki reworks, I actually didn't end up making videos on it, but I am a huge fan of Ra's rework. I'm actually going to put him at the top of A. Yeah, I'm real close to putting him to S, which surprises me, but even if his nukes aren't insane, he's bringing so much utility with the Blaze and the vulnerable defense down. I think he's going to be crazy against a bunch of bosses. I know he wasn't the craziest in alpha because Blazes weren't super effective in the bosses in alpha, but I just see him being crazy in general boss encounters in the game. Alright, they're kind of on opposite sides of the hero list, but we finally got to Rajin, Fujin's partner champion. He's a cunning slayer aligned with chaos from Izumo, with a leader bonus 25% attack in all battles. Rajin's basic attacks 3 random targets. If the target is under a debuff, place barrier on this hero. If Fujin's on the same team, he will also gain the barrier and he will join the attack. I'm assuming since it's Rajin's ability, he'll attack first. But Fujin, if he's on the same team, is bringing some debuffs, so that'll help improve your chance, just in general, not on this skill, but will improve your chance to get the barrier for both of them if they're joined on the same team. Don't love attacking 3 random targets, but it's a basic, so I can live with it. Just gonna get real annoying if you start missing the debuffs and not getting the barrier. His core, guess it's worth a reminder that Fujin, when he joins the attack, his basic is a AoE with resistance down, so that's what he'll be bringing when he joins. The core, 5 turns, scrolls down to 4. Attack all enemies 2 times. First hit has a 75, scrolls to 100% chance to apply Hex 2 on each target for 2 turns. Second hit has a 75, scrolls to 100% chance to apply Defense down 2 on each target for 2 turns. I think that's a great combo, getting Hex out there so all the allies share damage. And then the defense down 2, so lower their defense, make all the damage more impactful, including damage from the Hex. I will say, I know I said I'm not really focusing on the multipliers, but it took me a couple reads to realize he doesn't have any multipliers in his little hero card, so we don't even know where he's at for a rough guess. Anyways, moving on to his ultimate, 0 base divinity, costs 1,000, attacks all enemies 3 times, increase this hero's divinity by 10% for each enemy defeated. If Fujin's on the same team, also increase his divinity by the same amount. Kinda tough to tell how many enemies you're going to be taking out with it, and then you're only getting 10% for each enemy defeated. I'm not super wowed by it, but you know, AoE 3-time hitter is still pretty solid. Passive, when an enemy receives a debuff, shock them, inflicting damage, which cannot be critical and ignores defense. This can trigger up to 1 time per enemy turn. I think that's a really cool passive. It's not something that's super overtuned, but nice little bonus damage, kind of like kicking the enemy while they're down. They're getting a debuff and boom, now you take a little bonus damage as well. Obviously with his core being the AoE, you'll do that little damage and then you can't do the damage again until the enemy gets a turn. You would kind of be relying on other debuffers to do additional damage on top of that, but I don't know, still a fun little extra way to work in damage. I don't really have any crazy thoughts about Rajin. I think he brings some really solid debuffs to help increase his damage, so he'll just have some general wave utility. I'm gonna drop him right behind Isis. Yeah, I like his kit. It doesn't wow me though, so I think he's good right there. On to another one of the stars from Alpha, Shamash. He is a strong strength invoker, aligned with Order from the Ecker faction. Leader bonus 20% initiative in all battles. Basic, attacks 1 enemy. The ally with the lowest divinity will join in the attack. The targets under Aether Burn increase the turn meter of all allies by 10%. Nice little sneaky join attack. Obviously you're hoping your Slayer has the lowest turn meter, but you know, any little bonus damage helps. And increasing the turn meter of all allies if the target's under Aether Burn obviously helps also. He doesn't have a great chance to place Aether Burn, but if you can bring him in with another hero that does place it, you're going to get a lot of speed boosting from his basic. 4 turn cooldown, scrolls down to 3, attack 1 enemy. All allies will join the attack. Has a 75, scrolls to 100% chance to place Aether Burn on the target for 2 turns. I mean, it's nice placing Aether Burn if the enemy survives. Thing is, with the joint attack, hoping to hit the enemy good and strong and just take him out with that one joint attack. So don't love the Aether Burn only going on the one enemy, but not the end of the world. For his ultimate, base 300 divinity, cost 1450. Revives a random ally with 60% HP and 40% turn meter. Then place Radiance 2 and Attack up 2 on all allies for 2 turns. Also heal all allies by 15% of their max HP. Place shield buff equal to 50% of any excess healing. And the nice thing is he has a passive where the first time an ally is killed in battle, he'll gain full divinity and activate his ultimate. So it's a real nice save mechanic as soon as somebody goes down. And I know the 40% turn meter is a little low. I was complaining about the other revives being low on HP and turn meter earlier, but he's placing Radiance 2 and Attack up 2 on all allies for 2 turns. So Radiance will help keep you alive by reducing the damage, and Attack up just helps you smack when you get a hit. And obviously there's that shield for any excess healing, so you get bonus survivability if some allies are at full health and get the heal. And his passive, when an ally joins this hero in attack, increase their divinity by 100. This was super strong in alpha. It's one of those things we're going to have to wait and see what the cooldown mechanic is to see how strong it really is once the game launches. But I mean, overall, he's just got a crazy kit. Joint attack is strong, bringing great buffs with the revive. You can probably already tell, but Shamash is going. S for Shamash. Again, I think he's right there with Heimdall, whichever way he's the lower one. But I just think Heimdall brings a little bit more survivability. And joint attack, counterattack. Joint attack's nice because you can target someone. Counterattack's nice because you just retaliate. You're retaliating every time you're attacked. But I just like Heimdall just a little bit better. But they're right on top of each other. We're splitting hairs here, how close they are to each other, I think. Alright, not to give too much away, but I think there's something with the S heroes being S tier. We already got Shamash, and I love Sung Wukong. When we get the CC leaks, I did make a video on him. Will admit, I'm not a big buff on his mythology. I've obviously heard about him from all the games that have been dropping him lately. I know he's in Raid, he dropped in Watcher of Realms, but I had stopped playing at that point, so I never got him in Watcher. Never got a chance to play Black Myth Wukong, but heard that was a great game. So he kind of blew up all over the place, and that's where I know him from. But as far as a hero goes for this game, he looks bananas, and is currently what I have locked in on my free-to-play. He is a cunning slayer, aligned with Chaos from the Tian faction, with a speed in all battles, 24% speed in all battles, leader bonus. Basic, attack one enemy, then increase this hero's divinity by 5%. If joining an attack, increase divinity by an additional 5%. Also, mirror one random buff from the target. We haven't been given a description of mirror yet, but just based off reading it, I'm assuming he copies a buff from the target, but without stealing it. For his core, 6 turn, scrolls down to 4. Place attack up 2 on this hero for 2 turns, then attack all enemies 2 times. For each buff on this hero, increase the damage inflicted by 10%. So obviously you're going to want to set him up with a buffer for get the most out of his core. And obviously he's going to help out a little bit with his basic mirroring buffs. If it is what I think it is, where he's just copying a buff from the target. And obviously he's a little greedy, only putting attack up 2 on himself, but nice AoE 2-time hitter. Now his ultimate starts with a base 100 divinity, costs 1200. Attacks 8 times at random. Again, don't love random, but 8 times? Are you kidding me? Each hit has a 35%, scrolls up to 50% chance to heal this hero for 8% of the damage inflicted, and decrease the target's turn meter by 8%, which is nice because unlike Perun, he doesn't have the reduction for hitting heroes multiple times on the turn meter reduction. Again, it's only a 50% chance, but it's nice not having the reduction there. He does have a reduction if a target is hit more than 5 times, additional hits inflict 50% reduced damage. So those last 3 are going to be a little bit more of a wet noodle hit than the original 5, but I mean, come on. If you are, let's say, attacking a boss or 1 enemy left, getting 5 hits before the reduction is huge. You can afford to hit like a wet noodle for the last 3. And his passive, I still haven't made up which is my favorite and which is my second favorite, but his is first or second for imprint that I want from Godforge quests. His passive, place Immortal on this hero for 2 turns when receiving fatal damage for the first time. Also has a 50% chance to join an ally's attack. I love that chance for him to join an ally attack, especially if he's mirroring buffs and it works the way I think. Going to be joining attacks pretty frequently at 50% rate, and just gaining all sorts of buffs on Sun Wukong. I know Slayers don't belong on S tier. This dude is going on S tier. I'm going with the fun play. I think he should go here, but I love his passive. I love his kit. I think he's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm putting him here. A little bit of personal, just plain old fun. Take that how you will. That's where I'm throwing him on my tier list. Continuing the S-Hero S-Tier train, we have Svarog, a Wisdom Defender, aligned with Order from the Virage faction, 30% defense in dungeon battles. Basic, attack one enemy with a 75 scrolls to 100% chance to place Blunt 2 on the target for 2 turns, so decreasing the enemy's chance to strong hit and their strong hit damage. His core, 4 turns, scrolls down to 3, attacks all enemies with a 75 scrolls to 100% chance to place attack down 2 on each target for 2 turns. Also place Protect 2 on all allies for 2 turns. The nice thing about attack down is the same thing that's good about attack helping all your heroes. Attack down 2 might not impact defenders and brawlers as much as slayers, but part of their multipliers still go off of attack, so it will still impact defenders and brawlers. So it's not a totally wasted skill, and obviously you're placing Protect 2 on all allies to protect them. With Svarog, he's a defender, job to protect. His ultimate, 0 base divinity, cost 1100, place res up 2 and defense up 2 on all allies for 3 turns, then place shield on all allies. So you get some solid buffs increasing your resistance and defense, and obviously you get the shield for bonus protection. And his passive, that's really going to be great in long sustained fights. Each time an ally uses an ultimate, decrease the damage received by all allies by 3% up to 10 times. So once you max that out, you get 30% damage reduction across the board on all your allies, and that's just a massive chunk of damage reduction. Throw them right here next to Athena. They're really just as close as I was saying Heimdall and Quetz and Shamash were. They're right there, Athena and Svarog. I think Svarog's probably the better choice if you're looking for more protection and damage reduction. But as of right now, Athena has the bigger shield, and I also love the Petrify that she brings, so that just edges out Svarog for me. But they're almost interchangeable as far as how close to each other they are. Well, I just realized I recorded that with the hero card still up, but in case you wanna see it, instant replay. Svarog, boom, right next to Athena. Again, still think they're almost borderline interchangeable. Could go either way. I think Athena just nudges them out. Now back to your regularly scheduled program. 2 heroes to go. Almost there. Alright, Viviane. We almost saved the best for last, but she's not quite the last. We have another hero to go after her. But before we get into Viviane, Ragewood, we get some beef, man. Just because you're the bigger creator. Bigger subscribers. Not insinuating that you have any assets that are bigger than subscribers. That's what I mean. You don't just get to claim her as your work wife. I don't know how we're going to settle this, but it's on. Anyways, all joking aside, Viviane has a great kit. She is a wisdom hero, invoker, aligned with Order from the Avalon faction. Leader bonus, 26. Eyes are going 26% speed in arena battles. I will say right off the rip, I wish she had like a lower percent all battles or same percent dungeon battles. Like sure, her kit does work fine for the arena, but I think she really shines in the dungeons. I think that's where you'll get the best use of her kit. I mean, granted, she does have some great use for a go second team in arena, but then you don't really need the speed lead if you're going second, you know? I think it would be better suited for dungeons or all battles if it was a lower, obviously a lower percentage for all battles. Anyways, her basic, attack one enemy, reduce the divinity cost of each ally by 15, stacking up to 10 times. Again, this is where we get into, I think she's better suited for dungeons. You better hope you're not using your basic 10 times in arena battle. I don't want to sit there that long in an arena battle that I have to get back to my basic 10 times. So I think it's better suited for dungeons and boss battles, personally. But obviously, every reduction of divinity cost will help. 4, it's big boy 6 turn, but it scrolls down to 3. Place attack up 2 and defense up 2 on all allies for 2 turns. Then increase the duration of buffs on all allies by 1 turn. Couple things to go over here. She's placing the buffs for 2 turns before extending. So once she extends them, she's putting attack up and defense up for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. So you got 100% uptime on your attack up and defense up. Huge. On top of whatever other buffs you're bringing in from other heroes, which may now have 100% uptime with that 1 turn increase. The one downside is they really don't want unkillable teams to be a big part of the game. I'm sure some big brain people will figure out a way to get them worked in, but her buff extension does not apply to things like Ward and Immortal, and there's one other one I'm forgetting, but basically anything that prevents death or damage. She's not going to extend those, which is a bummer, but I mean, there's so many good buffs that can still be extended. Not being able to extend those doesn't really change my opinion on her kit that much. Her ultimate, base 250 divinity, costs 1650, remove all disables from all allies, also removes all debuff on allies from Avalon, which again, if there is Faction Wars content or a boss that Avalon heroes just are suited for, she has the arena lead, so maybe there's a sweet Avalon arena setup, but basically getting rid of debuffs and disables is huge. Then attacks one enemy with all allies joining the attack. We know how powerful joined attacks are. Granted, it's on our ultimate, so it won't be super frequent, but it's still great. And if the target's defeated, increase the turn meter of allies by 20%. We kind of talked about this with Shamash. If you're bringing in an ally attack, you're taking everyone with you. Your goal is to defeat the enemy you're targeting, so it's nice getting a buff in this situation for defeating the target. Or, I say buff, but turn meter increase. And her passive, allies inflict 20% increased damage with their basic abilities. This is doubled when joining attacks. So that's great, just having a flat 20% increased damage with their basic abilities. It's actually pretty nuts when you think about some of the AoE heroes, or I should say heroes with AoEs on their basic. Like right off the rip, you're doing AoE damage with an increased damage, and it's doubled when joining. So that brings us back to the goal being to defeat the enemy when you're attacking them with a join attack. So you're getting that 20% increased damage doubled. It's just chef's kiss. Love this kit, love Viviane for reasons. I think a buff extender is real good. The rest of her kit looks good, and other reasons to show support for someone close to Godforge. I know I've gone over that in a previous video, but good to throw it back in, show some support. So you might have guessed it, Viviane goes boom, right there for me. Leaves us with our last hero. Almost there, guys and girls, just hang on a little bit longer. We have Wang, Strength, Disruptor, aligned with Chaos from the Tian faction. Leader bonus 19% initiative in all battles. Basic attacks all enemies, then has a 35 scrolls to 50% chance to place speed down on each target for one turn. Not a great chance to land, but it's a basic, so you can live with it. Speed down is a strong buff. Core, 4 turns, scroll downs to 3, attacks all enemies, with a 75 scrolls to 100% chance to place a random defense down, attack down, accuracy down, or res down, all level 2, on each target for 2 turns. I like the 100% chance, don't love the randomness and the discrepancy between the debuffs. Let's come back to that. Ultimate, base divinity 275, costs 1700, attacks all enemies, then has a 50, scrolls to 75% chance to place lock core and lock passive on each target for 2 turns. With the relatively high cost and it being an ultimate, would love to see 100% here. I know lock core and lock passive is pretty insane, so I guess I can live with the 75%. I don't know. I'd love to see 100 on an ultimate. Passive, increase this hero's initiative by 2%, stacking up to 30% after placing a debuff. Obviously, he's placing a ton of debuff, so his initiative is going to get boosted up. I guess the high cost does get reduced by his initiative getting boosted up, but I don't know. Maybe even 90, just so there's still a little bit of randomness that you're going to miss. I think that 75 needs to be higher. And getting back to his core, I could live with the randomness if the debuffs weren't so varied. Like obviously attack down we went over, you're decreasing the attack for everybody. Defense down, yeah, you're making everybody weaker. Then accuracy down, resistance down. We're doing totally different things here. Again, I don't know a lot about his mythology, so maybe the debuff selection has something to do with that, but I think I could deal with the randomness if they switched the debuffs. We had defense down 2, or hex 2, or drain 2, or vulnerable 2. That way there you're all doing increased damage or making the enemies receive more damage. Like at least those debuffs are more cohesive, so no matter what, you're dealing more damage. versus you might deal more damage, you might take less damage, you might take less debuffs from their accuracy being down, might have an easier time placing buffs from their debuffs from their resistance being down. Like, you're doing totally different things there. I think if they brought buffs that were more aligned, that skill would slap. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on what you think would make Wang better. I think as he is, he's gonna go to the bottom of C. Does he deserve that? I'm actually gonna bump him up to the top of C tier just because I called C tier my niche tier. And I think Wang can be useful in a bunch of areas. Just don't think he deserves a B rating. For any eagle-eyed viewer of this video, you might have been looking at my tier list and noticed Hell's up here, but I never went over her kit. We actually got an updated hero card for her in the time that it took me to edit this, so I just wanted to drop her in at the end so we can get the updated card in. So here's the updated Hell kit. You can see she's now Eternal. She's the only Eternal in the pool for the minigame. She is a Slayer, Chaos, and Asgard faction, with a leader bonus of 30% attack in arena battles. Her basic attacks one enemy. If the target's under curse, inflict an additional 5% of the target's max HP. You know, anytime you can do max HP damage, that's huge, so it's a really strong basic. And her core is a 4-turn, scrolls down to 3, attack all enemies, with a 100% chance to place Curse 2 for 2 turns. So you're not going to get 100% uptime with the Curse to set up her basic, but getting it up for 2 turns is still nice, so you get 2 turns out of the max HP damage. And if you do some setup, like maybe bring her in with an Apollo that reduces the cooldown of the core, you can get it closer to 100% uptime, or just bring her in with another Curse champion. Onto her ultimate, the base divinity is 300 and it costs 1200. Attacks all enemies, revive all dead enemies, and apply Shade on the revived enemy, which cannot be resisted or blocked. Does not work on bosses or minions. If the target is a boss or minion, you place defense down 2 on the target instead for 2 turns. Nothing crazy getting defense down 2 on the boss and minions, but it's still nice that you do get some utility against bosses and minions, so the ability is not totally useless. Shade is a pretty crazy disable that they just came out with. We got the information for Shade at the same time that Hell's kit was updated, and basically the Shade basically makes the enemy uncontrollable and untargetable, so they're just there. Can't attack them, can't kill them, can't make them do anything. And then whenever the caster, in this case Hell, uses her basic, all the shades join in and attack when she uses her basic. And the shades only die if, again, in this case Hell, is defeated. I think it's a really cool disable. I don't know how useful it'll be in waves and PvE since you're only getting the defense down 2 on bosses and minions. But it could be cool for Arena and something like the Tower of Strife, where you're going to want a strong Slayer to help take down the waves in between bosses. And her passive, defeating an enemy, increases turn meter fill effects on this hero by 20%, stacking up to 5 times, which is a pretty insane passive. But the issue is, if she's mainly for waves and PvP, you're probably not going to get you're not going to get a ton of benefit from it when you wipe out a whole wave and then the fight's over. I think it needs a little more tweaking to make her kit work together. Maybe rework the passive a little so it comes off of placing debuffs or something, so you get a bonus for placing the AoE curse and placing the defense down 2 on bosses and minions if you're in boss fight. But overall, I think she'll still be a pretty crazy Slayer. And Shade, I'm really interested in Shade. I don't think it'll be the most broken ability in the game, but I think it'll be something cool to play with. As far as the tier list goes, really want to leave her where she is. I think it's kind of a pretty even change, but the fact that she's Eternal, I'm going to bump her to the top of A. I don't think Eternal gets her to S, but her being the only Eternal and the only one that doesn't have to worry about weak hits, so that instantly boosts her up as a Slayer, I feel okay putting her at the top of A. So, not a huge change there, but just a nice little bump. But yeah, there's the new finalized tier list with the updated Hell. I'll pop off the screen for a minute. So there's the tier list if you want to clear... Hold on. Didn't realize I had D tier cut off, but that is the work in progress tier anyways. There's the final tier list with me off the screen. And coming back in. Pretty much all I got for this one. Just a quick reminder, if you didn't catch it in the intro, there will be a playlist for this tier list and any additions I make to it. It'll probably be called Godforge Quest tier list playlist. So check out the playlist if you want to see if any of the hero cards have been updated. Shout out to Raven Pyros Gaming. Get to use his website for the tier list, and there's a lot of other great tools on there. A reminder to sign up for Godforge Quests if you haven't. It is too late for the 20 days on a legendary hero, but you can still lock in a weapon, imprint, and portrait. And one last thing, super important, Super Bowl this weekend. But yeah, that's it for me. Have a good one. Okay, I lied, I forgot one more thing. Please like and subscribe. Kind of doing this more part-time as a hobby, so kind of have sporadic posting. You can see like a couple weeks or sometimes even a month in between videos. So the likes and subscribes really help, especially with the sporadic posting. So really appreciate it, and thanks for watching.